barriers, right? When we're talking about different people around the world in different areas around the world, not everyone has what we have access to here in the United States. And so we also have to think about, and under the circumstances, some people don't have Wi-Fi, some people don't have the devices necessary to support this Web3 environment. I'm sorry, these things are too small for my ears, which is why I never wear them. They're too big. They're too small. So anyway, but anyway, and so I think we also have to consider those things. And so depending on who I'm talking to and what part of the world and what their resources are like, the conversation may be slightly different. Once we get past the purpose and what you're passionate about, the how, the strategy changes. Because if you don't have Wi-Fi, if you don't have the device necessary to get the education, some people don't even have a laptop to take advantage of some of the programs that you can get educated in, the things that surround Web3. So I think to leverage it is different for everyone, but you should definitely start with your purpose and start there.
Okay, let's transition even more. Well, I guess not transition, but let's continue. Now let's bring the women's critical role into this thing, right? What are women's what do you call it, involvement in the Web3, right?
So women are here. People say that women are not here. We are here. We are here in different capacities, and we are here like rocking it. As I'm choosing my words carefully, but we are doing the thing, and I think the thing is what people see though, and granted, it's not at the level of men, and so it's not, as far as the percentages, it's not the same thing, right? However, there are women here, and so I think one, women's role is, we do the thing, and so we are detailed oriented. We can do a lot. Some of us are moms, we have all that, and we're doing the thing in tech. So I think when you think of a woman's role, it's just like a man's role. Whatever we want to do, we can do. And so I don't, so that question is kind of difficult for me to answer, like, oh, we're going to do just this. No, we can do anything, and we can do anything that a man does. But what we need is someone to make space for us, because those who are taking up space and inviting, most of the time, their people, their friends who look like them, same gender, same race, ethnicity, the same, right? But what we need is those people who are interested in having more perspectives, more voices at the table, to really invite those people in, to invite us in, right? And so I think that's what's missing, and that's what will create the woman's quote unquote role, which sounds very, very ancient to say a woman's role. It seems like those old stereotypes of what women do, those are gone. So now it's just a matter of allowing us to play in this space, and we'll show you, because we got it.
And what comes to mind, as you're talking about literally this invite thing, guys, people, at whole, we practice nepotism to a certain extent, knowingly or unknowingly, right? But one of the things that I've realized, and I continue to see, my time in business areas, people do business with people that they're friends with, people they get along with, people that are in their space. And you hear the thing that deals are closed at golf courses and what have you. And one thing I think about is this network component, because it kind of, I think that's where you're leading with this. So I want to ask you something. How can women establish these relationships also, as a woman yourself who's networking and building you have a superb Rolodex yourself? How do women follow pursuit and do something similar to this, so that they're also in spaces, that these sort of deals are being conducted and what have you?
So that's interesting, because as a woman, what I do is if I see someone is like, oh, I need someone on panel. So one, I make connections and I learn, I'm always moving and shaking around. And so because of that, I make connections and I get to know people. And if someone needs something that's not in my wheelhouse, but say it's a panel, let's just use that as an example, and they need one space, and I see that it's all these men on here and they need one more person, then the person I will intentionally think about or try to think about is someone I've met or know who's a woman or who has a different perspective from the people that are represented on the panel. And I think that's one thing, right? Is to be intentional about who you ask to do things. And some of them may be your friend. And I understand, like if I'm going into business like a partner that's like a joint venture, that's like a marriage, because some partnerships are more like a marriage. Yeah, I may approach that differently, but I think there are some things that we do and we engage in that it's okay to invite other people that you also know. And of course, you want to know them well because reputation is a thing. You don't want anybody who's going to go in there and mess up your reputation. But I mean, there's, part of making connections is having interactions with people. And sometimes we have to be intentional about those interactions. And then, I always encourage those people like yourself who ask me questions like this, because you're in a different position as a man. And so sometimes it's just also those who we consider allies or those who are really in this work, accomplices, who really are a champion for those of us who are not included, is to really be intentional about who you invite, right? Who you invite if you have a +1, who you invite if you see an opportunity that you don't mind putting someone else's name forward. So I also know that integrity and reputation is something big. So I also don't take that lightly, but I think that it's about being intentional and it's about thinking about who you can invite to the table and who is missing. So it's not only like who you can invite, because it may not be somebody but who's missing. And then ask those people who you trust, who would they recommend, right? And it may not be a direct connection. So I think that people always want to think it's people that they know that they can get credit. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about who knows who and who you can ask that you trust to also invite other people to the table. I don't know.
Interesting perspective. No, for sure. And much of what you're saying, I can relate to, because I don't know, I'm sure for sure that black men haven't necessarily been in a position of power in time past neither. So when we're talking women, minorities, it's like we're in that same boat together. So I get 100% of what you're saying. It's always good to share a perspective on how we can equip our groups into getting into